Gather close, traveler. The Old West holds tales of honor, betrayal, and legends that time forgot. Let me tell you one of them. Before we ride into tonight's story, take a moment to like this tale, subscribe for more epic Old West stories, and share it with someone who loves a good frontier legend. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? Now, settle in. Our story begins. The desert wind carried whispers of a dead man. 3 years had passed since the shootout at Copper Ridge. 3 years since Jack Marston supposedly bled out on the saloon floor with 6 bullets in him. The whole territory knew the story, how he'd taken on the Gannett brothers in their hired guns, how he'd dropped 4 men before the lead found him, how Sheriff Tom Holcomb himself had pronounced him dead and buried him in the potter's field outside town. The grave was still there, weathered headstone and all, but graves don't always keep what's buried in them. The stranger rode into redemption on a dappled, gray mare just as the sun began its descent toward the jagged horizon. Dust clung to him like a second skin, coating his wide-brimmed hat, his dark duster, the worn boots that hung in his stirrups. He didn't ride down the main street like most travelers, seeking a meal and a bed. Instead, he came in from the Eastern Trail, the long way, the path that skirted the town and gave a man time to see without being seen. From the shadow of the livery stable, he watched redemption go about its late afternoon business. The general store was doing steady trade. A freight wagon creaked past, laden with supplies for the mining operation up in the hills. Women in sun-faded dresses hurried along the boardwalk, some with children in tow. 2 men stood outside the land office, smoking and talking in low tones. Nothing unusual, nothing that screamed danger. But Jack Marston hadn't survived 3 years in hiding by taking things at face value. He dismounted slowly, feeling the familiar ache in his left side where the bullet had torn through muscle and scraped bone. The doctors in Santa Fe, the ones who'd stitched him back together after a sympathetic freight driver had found him barely breathing in a ditch, told him he'd never ride again, never draw a gun with any speed. They'd been half right. He could ride. Drawing, well, that had taken months of gritting his teeth through agony, relearning every motion with damaged nerves and rebuilt muscle. "Help you, mister?" The voice came from inside the stable. A wiry man in his 50s emerged from the shadows, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. His eyes were sharp, assessing, the kind of eyes that had seen too much frontier life to be easily fooled. "Need to board my horse," Jack said, keeping his voice neutral, unremarkable. 3 days, maybe 4. $1 a day, feed and water included. The stableman's gaze lingered on the mare, then traveled up to Jack's face. For a moment, something flickered in those sharp eyes. Recognition, maybe, or suspicion. But it passed. "You look familiar, friend. You been through redemption before?" "Never," Jack lied smoothly. "Just passing through on my way to Silver Creek?" The stableman nodded, though his expression suggested he didn't quite believe it. "Well, we don't get many strangers taking the long trail into town. Most folks use the main road. I prefer the scenic route." A faint smile crossed the older man's weathered face. "Scenic. That's one word for it." He took the mare's reins. "Name's Hutchins. You need anything else? Supplies, directions, news? You let me know." "Obliged." Jack handed over $3 silver, watching as Hutchins led the mare into a stall. The man moved with the careful efficiency of someone who'd spent a lifetime around horses. Trustworthy, probably, but trust was a luxury Jack couldn't afford. He stepped out into the fading sunlight and surveyed the town with different eyes now. The eyes of someone who'd once called this place something close to home. 3 years changed things. Buildings that had been fresh painted were now peeling. The old hotel had a new sign, but the bones of redemption remained the same. The saloon on the corner, the sheriff's office across from it, the bank at the end of Main Street standing like a fortress. And there, in front of the saloon, hitched to the rail, was a blood-bay stallion Jack would have recognized anywhere. His hand instinctively moved toward his colt before he stopped himself. Not yet. Not in broad daylight, with witnesses everywhere. He'd come too far, planned too carefully, to throw it all away on impulse. Besides, he needed to know if Cole Gannett was alone. Jack crossed the street with measured steps, keeping his head down just enough to make himself unremarkable, but not so much that it looked like he was hiding. The boardwalk creaked under his boots as he approached the saloon. Through the dusty window, he could see figures moving inside. Men at the bar, a few playing cards at corner tables. The late afternoon crowd, mostly miners and ranch hands finishing their shifts. The batwing doors swung open just as Jack reached them. Cole Gannett stepped out onto the boardwalk. 3 years had added weight to the man, turned his face harder and his eyes meaner. He wore his gun low on his right hip, tied down like he expected trouble and welcomed it. A silver deputy star gleamed on his vest, a detail that made Jack's jaw tighten. Deputy. The son of a bitch was wearing a badge now. Cole's eyes swept past Jack without recognition. Just another dusty traveler in a town full of them. He moved to his stallion, began checking the saddle rigging with the careful attention of a man who trusted nothing and no one. Jack kept walking, passed within 3 feet of the man who'd put 2 bullets in him, who'd stood over him and laughed while Jack's blood pooled on the saloon floor. Every instinct screamed at him to draw, to settle it right here, right now. But he was one man against whatever corrupt system had put a star on Cole Gannett's chest. He needed information first, needed to know who else was still breathing in this town, who else had been part of that night. He continued past the saloon toward the hotel, feeling Cole's presence at his back like a target painted between his shoulder blades. Only when he'd put 20 yards between them did he allow himself a breath. Evening, a stranger. The hotel clerk was a thin woman with graying hair and kind eyes. Looking for a room? If you've got one. Got several. $2 a night. Sheets changed every 3 days. She turned the ledger toward him. Name? Jack paused, pen hovering over the page. The name he'd been using for 3 years felt wrong here, too dishonest for what he was about to do. But his real name was supposed to be on a headstone. He wrote, James Sutton. Room 7, top of the stairs, and to the left, the clerk said, handing him a key. Supper's at 6 if you're hungry. We serve in the dining room. Appreciate it, ma'am. The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a window overlooking Main Street. Jack set his saddlebags on the bed and moved to the window. From here, he had a clear view of the saloon, the sheriff's office, and most of the street. He could see Cole Gannett mounting his blood bay, could watch as the man rode not toward the edge of town, but toward the sheriff's office. The door to the office opened before Cole even dismounted. A figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a sheriff's star. Tom Holcomb, the man who'd pronounced Jack dead. The man who'd buried him without question, without an inquest, without anything resembling justice. Jack's hands curled into fists as he watched the 2 men talk on the boardwalk. They were too far away for him to hear words, but their body language spoke volumes. Comfortable, familiar, Confederates rather than lawman and deputy. Whatever corruption had taken root in redemption had grown deep in 3 years. The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. Jack turned from the window and began unpacking his gear with methodical care. His Colt needed cleaning after days on the trail. His rifle required the same attention. He had a knife in his boot that wanted sharpening. Tools of his trade, tools of vengeance. Someone knocked on the door. 3 sharp raps. Jack's hand went to his gun as he crossed the small room. "Who is it?" "Hutchins." From the stable. Jack opened the door carefully, keeping his body angled so he could draw if needed. The stableman stood in the hallway, hat in his hands, his expression grave. "Thought you should know," Hutchins said quietly. "After you left the stable, Cole Gannett came by asking questions. Wanted to know who owned the dappled gray, where the rider was headed." "What did you tell him?" "Told him a stranger from Silver Creek, just passing through." "But Cole's got a suspicious nature. He might come looking. Why are you warning me?" Hutchins' eyes hardened. "Because 3 years ago, I watched them carry a good man out of the saloon in a coffin. Jack Marston never deserved what they did to him. And if there's even a chance that some kind of justice might finally come to this town," he settled his hat back on his head, "well, I figure a man's got a right to know when wolves are circling." With that, he turned and walked down the hallway, his footsteps fading into silence. Jack closed the door and leaned against it, his heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Someone remembered. Someone still cared. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he'd thought. He moved back to the window and watched as darkness crept across Redemption like a stain. Lamps began to glow in windows. The saloon grew louder, piano music drifting into the evening air. Somewhere out there, Cole Gannett was asking questions, and Sheriff Holcomb was probably helping him look for answers. Let them look. Let them wonder. Tomorrow, Jack would start making his presence known in ways that couldn't be ignored. Tonight, he would rest and remember why he'd come back from the dead. Outside his window, a coyote howled in the distance, a lonely, savage sound that matched the feeling in Jack's chest. He was home. And someone was going to pay? What secrets does Sheriff Holcomb hide behind that badge? And how long before Cole Gannett realizes the ghost he buried isn't staying down? Jack Marston woke to the sound of gunfire. His hand found his Colt before his eyes were fully open, muscle memory overriding the fog of sleep. He rolled from the bed, crouched low, and moved to the window in one fluid motion. The pain in his side flared. It always did when he moved too fast, but he ignored it. Dawn was just breaking over Redemption, painting the eastern sky in shades of amber and rose. On the street below, a cluster of men had gathered near the bank. More gunshots rang out. Not the sharp crack of a pistol fight, but the deliberate, measured reports of target practice. Jack's breathing steadied as he took in the scene. 4 men with rifles, setting up bottles and cans against the far wall of the blacksmith shop. Among them, he recognized Cole Gannett's distinctive silhouette. The others he didn't know. New faces, probably hired guns, brought in after Jack's supposed death. "Making a show of it," Jack muttered to himself. This wasn't about practice. This was about reminding the town who held the power here, who controlled the guns and the law. He dressed quickly, strapping on his gun belt and checking the Colt's action one more time. 6 rounds, cylinder spinning smooth. The weight of it on his hip felt right, felt necessary. In a town where the law wore the face of corruption, a man's best friend was the iron he carried. The hotel's dining room smelled of coffee and frying bacon when Jack descended the stairs. Only a handful of people occupied the tables, an older couple eating in silence, a traveling salesman studying a ledger, and a young woman in a simple blue dress who sat alone near the window. Jack took a table in the corner, back to the wall, where he could watch both the door and the street. The hotel clerk from the previous night appeared, now wearing an apron, a coffee pot in her hand. "Morning, Mr. Sutton. Sleep well?" She poured without waiting for an answer. The rich, dark coffee steaming in the chipped ceramic cup. "Well enough. What's the shooting about?" "Oh, that?" She shook her head with obvious distaste. "Sheriff Holcomb's boys like to make noise every few days. Says it keeps the town safe, having men who can shoot straight. Mostly, it just scares the horses and wakes folks up too early." She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping. "Between you and me, I think it's more about intimidation than safety. How long's Holcomb been sheriff?" "Going on 4 years now. Was deputy before that, under Sheriff McCarty. When McCarty died, consumption, they said, Tom stepped right into the job, brought in Cole Garnett as his deputy about 3 years back. 3 years. Right after Jack was supposed to have died. And the town's happy with that arrangement?" The clerk's expression hardened. "Happy isn't the word I'd use. But what can folks do? Vote's coming up in 6 months, but Holcomb's got the backing of the mining company and most of the big ranchers. Money talks, Mr. Sutton, especially out here." She moved on to other tables, leaving Jack to his coffee and his thoughts. He was sipping the bitter brew when the young woman from the window table stood and walked past him. She dropped something as she went by, a folded piece of paper that landed soundlessly next to his plate. Jack didn't reach for it immediately. Instead, he watched her leave through the front door, moving with purpose toward the general store across the street. Only when she disappeared inside did he unfold the paper under the table. The message was brief, written in a neat, feminine hand. "If you're who I think you are, I can help. Back alley behind the church, noon. Come alone." Jack read it twice, then tucked it into his vest pocket. A trap? Possibly. But also possibly the break he needed. Hutchins' warning last night had proven that at least one person in Redemption wasn't under Holcomb's thumb. Maybe this E was another. He finished his breakfast quickly and stepped out into the morning sun. The shooting had stopped, but the men were still gathered near the bank, talking and laughing. Cole Garnett stood among them, cleaning his rifle with exaggerated care. When he noticed Jack watching from across the street, his hand stilled on the barrel. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, Jack thought he saw recognition flash across Cole's face. But then it was gone. She replaced by the casual arrogance of a man who feared nothing. Cole said something to the others, and they all turned to look at Jack. One of them, a scarred man with a battered hat, rested his hand on his pistol. Jack didn't flinch, didn't look away. He stood there in the morning light, a dusty stranger who refused to be intimidated and let them see that he wasn't afraid. After a long moment, Cole turned away first, barking an order that sent his men dispersing. But as they left, Cole glanced back one more time, his expression thoughtful. Seeds of doubt, Jack thought. That's all he needed to plant. Make them wonder, make them question, make them nervous. He spent the next few hours walking Redemption streets, relearning the town's rhythms. Some things had changed. The old saloon where he'd nearly died was now called the Silver Dollar instead of the Rusty Nail, and a new mercantile had opened where the cobbler's shop used to be. But the bones were the same, the layout familiar despite the years. At 11:30, Jack made his way toward the church at the north end of town. It was a modest structure, whitewashed wood with a small bell tower, sitting on a slight rise overlooking Main Street, the kind of church frontier towns built when they wanted to believe they were civilized. Jack circled around to the back alley, hand resting on his Colt, eyes scanning every shadow. A small cemetery stretched behind the church, headstones tilted at odd angles in the rocky soil. Beyond that, scrub brush and desert. He was early. Good. Better to scope the ground before the meeting. The alley was narrow, bordered on one side by the church and the other by a feed store. Crates were stacked near the feed store's back door, providing cover if things went wrong. An overturned water trough sat against the church wall. No other exits except the way he'd come in and the open desert beyond. Not ideal, but workable. At precisely noon, he heard footsteps approaching from the cemetery side. Jack drew his Colt and waited, pressed against the church wall where he could see without being seen. The young woman from breakfast appeared, glancing around nervously before stepping into the alley. She wore the same blue dress, but now she carried a cloth bag over one shoulder. Up close, Jack could see she was younger than he'd first thought. Maybe 23, 24, with dark hair pulled back and intelligent green eyes that swept the alley with practiced efficiency. "Mr. Sutton," she called softly. "Or should I call you Mr. Marston?" Jack stepped out from cover, but kept his gun drawn. "Depends on who's asking. My name is Emma Holloway." She kept her hands visible, away from her body. "I was engaged to Daniel Cartwright. You might remember him. He worked for the land office, helped people file claims." The name hit Jack like a physical blow. Daniel Cartwright. Young, honest, idealistic. The kind of man who believed the law should work for everyone, not just the powerful. "I remember him," Jack said carefully. "Good man. Is he still in town?" Emma's expression crumbled for just a moment before she mastered it. "They killed him 6 months ago. Made it look like a robbery. But I know it was Holcomb and his men." Daniel had discovered something. Documents showing how the sheriff was working with the mining company to steal land from homesteaders. He was going to expose them. And they couldn't let that happen. No. She reached into her bag slowly, watching Jack's gun. "I've been collecting evidence ever since. Ledgers, letters, deed transfers that don't make sense. It's not enough to go to the territorial marshal. Holcomb has friends in Silver Creek. But it might be enough for someone who has other reasons to want justice." Jack holstered his Colt. "You know who I am. I suspected when you rode in yesterday. Hutchins confirmed it this morning. He told me about the stranger asking questions. Riding a horse like the one Jack Marston used to own. And when I saw you watching Cole at breakfast, the way you looked at him," she stepped closer. "You're supposed to be dead, Mr. Marston. Why come back?" "Same reason you're collecting evidence on your fiancé's killers." Jack's voice went hard. "Because they took something from me, and I aim to take it back. Plus interest." Emma studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "There are others in this town who remember what happened 3 years ago, who know you weren't the criminal Holcomb made you out to be. Hutchins, obviously, Reverend Morrison, who runs the church. A few of the older ranchers who've been getting squeezed out by Holcomb's land schemes. If you're planning what I think you're planning, you won't be alone. I work better alone. Then you'll die alone." Emma's voice carried a steel that belied her age. "Holcomb has 8 men on his payroll now, not counting the miners and ranchers he's bought off. Cole Gannett is dangerous, but he's not the worst of them. They brought in a man called Silas Crane 2 months ago, a killer from down in Texas with a reputation for making problems disappear. If you go up against them without help, they'll put you back in that grave for real this time." Jack wanted to argue, wanted to insist he didn't need anyone's help. But the truth was, she was right. 3 years ago, he'd been younger, faster, less damaged. He'd still barely survived. Now, with a body that didn't move quite right, and enemies who'd only gotten stronger, pride would get him killed. "What exactly are you proposing?" "An alliance. You want revenge. I want justice. Maybe those aren't so different." Emma pulled a small leather journal from her bag. "This contains everything I've been able to document. Names, dates, property transfers. It's enough to start asking the right questions, putting pressure on the right people. But I need someone who can back me up when Holcomb pushes back, and he will push back. Jack took the journal, flipping through pages of neat handwriting and careful notations. She'd been thorough, mapping out a web of corruption that went deeper than he'd imagined. Land fraud, intimidation, murder, and at the center of it all, Sheriff Tom Holcomb and his deputy, Cole Gannett. "There's one more thing," Emma said. "The reason they tried to kill you 3 years ago, it wasn't just because you challenged Cole to that fight in the saloon." "What are you talking about?" "You were getting too close to something." And Daniel found references in old correspondence, letters between Holcomb and the previous mine owner. You'd been asking questions about missing workers from the silver mine, men who went into the tunnels and never came out. Do you remember? Jack did remember, though the details were hazy. It had been shortly before the shootout, just a nagging suspicion that something wasn't right up at the mining operation. Men disappearing, families left with no answers, and Holcomb brushing it all aside as desertion or accidents. How many men went missing? At least 15 that we can document, probably more. Emma's voice dropped. Daniel thought they might still be up there. Not alive, but their bodies. Evidence that could hang Holcomb and everyone involved. The mine's been operating in the same area for years. If there are bodies, they'd be in the old shafts. A chill ran down Jack's spine, despite the desert heat. This was bigger than personal revenge, bigger than a corrupt sheriff and a crooked deputy. This was mass murder, covered up and forgotten. "We need to get into that mine," he said. "I was hoping you'd say that." Emma smiled grimly. "I know someone who can help, a foreman who's been having second thoughts about his employers. But we'll need to move carefully. Holcomb has eyes everywhere." Before Jack could respond, the church bell began to toll. Both of them tensed, but it was just marking the hour, 12:30. "I should go," Emma said. "People will notice if I'm gone too long. Meet me tomorrow night after dark. There's an old line shack about 2 miles east of town, near Copper Creek. We can talk more freely there." "How do I know this isn't a trap?" Emma met his eyes steadily. "You don't, but if I wanted you dead, I'd have already told Holcomb where to find you. I want the same thing you do, Mr. Marston. I want them to pay for what they've done. The question is whether you're willing to trust someone besides yourself long enough to make that happen." She was right, and they both knew it. "Tomorrow night," Jack agreed. The line shack. Emma turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Be careful of Cole Gannett. He's been jumpy since you rode into town. It's like some part of him knows, even if he doesn't want to admit it. A cornered dog is the most dangerous kind." Then she was gone, slipping back through the cemetery with the same practiced stealth she'd shown arriving. Jack stood alone in the alley, in the journal heavy in his hands. He'd come to redemption for simple vengeance, put bullets in the men who tried to kill him, then ride away. But this was something else now. Something that demanded more than just blood. The afternoon sun blazed overhead as Jack made his way back toward the hotel, taking a roundabout route through back streets. He was passing the rear of the general store when a voice called out from the shadows. "I know who you are." Jack spun, hand on his gun, but didn't draw. A man stepped out from behind a stack of supply crates, older, maybe 60, with iron gray hair and a weathered face. He wore simple work clothes and carried no visible weapons. "Reverend Morrison," the man said, holding up his hands peacefully. "Emma told me you might be coming around. I wanted to meet you myself. Tell you, I'm glad you survived. You were at my funeral. I presided over it, spoke words over an empty coffin, while Holcomb and his boys stood there looking satisfied with themselves." Morrison's expression hardened. "That was the day I stopped believing that justice and the law were the same thing. Sometimes God's work requires dirty hands, Mr. Marston. I'm not looking for absolution, Reverend. And I'm not offering it. I'm offering information. Morrison glanced around to ensure they were alone. There's going to be a card game tonight at the Silver Dollar. High stakes, invitation only. Holcomb will be there, along with Cole and this new man, Silas Crane. They'll be drinking, celebrating. Seems the mining company just awarded Holcomb a bonus for keeping the peace. You think I should crash the party? I think you should watch it. See how they interact, who's loyal to who, where the fractures are. Every army has weak points, Mr. Marston. Find theirs. Smart advice from an unexpected source. Jack nodded slowly. I appreciate the tip. Don't thank me yet. Stay alive long enough to finish this. Then you can thank me. Morrison turned to go, then added over his shoulder. Emma's a good girl. Lost too much already. Don't let her get killed trying to help you. I'll do my best. Your best better be damn good. Because if Holcomb figures out what's happening, he won't just come for you. He'll burn this whole town down to keep his secrets buried. The Reverend disappeared into the afternoon crowds, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts and the growing realization that he'd stepped into something far more complex than he'd anticipated. He spent the rest of the day in his hotel room, studying Emma's journal and planning his next moves. When darkness fell over Redemption, he took up position across from the Silver Dollar, tucked into the shadows between two buildings where he could watch without being seen. The card game started just after 9. Holcomb arrived first, flanked by 2 men Jack didn't recognize. Then Cole, riding his blood bay and looking pleased with himself. And finally, a tall, thin man in a black suit who moved with the fluid grace of a rattlesnake. Silas Crane. Even from a distance, Jack could tell this one was different. This was a professional, a man who killed for money and took pride in his work. Through the saloon window, Jack watched them take their seats at a corner table. Whiskey flowed, cards were dealt, money changed hands. But more than that, he watched their body language, the way Holcomb commanded the table, how Cole deferred to the sheriff while eyeing Crane with obvious unease. Fractures, just like Morrison had said. Jack was so focused on the saloon that he almost missed the rider coming down the street at a hard gallop. Almost! He pressed deeper into the shadows as the horseman reined up in front of the sheriff's office. The man dismounted quickly, dust flying from his clothes, and ran straight into the saloon. Through the window, Jack saw him approach Holcomb's table and lean down to whisper urgently in the sheriff's ear. Whatever he said made Holcomb's face go white. The sheriff stood abruptly, scattering cards across the table. He barked orders that sent men scrambling. Cole grabbed his hat and gun belt. Silas Crane simply stood and stretched, like he'd been expecting this interruption. They were mobilizing. Something had happened, something big enough to pull them from their celebration. Jack melted back into the darkness and made his way quickly to the livery stable. Hutchins was still awake, mending tack by lamplight. Something's going on, Jack said without preamble. Holcomb and his men are gearing up like the territory's on fire. Hutchins set down his tools. Word came in, about an hour ago, from the mine. There was a collapse in one of the old shafts. 3 men trapped. A collapse? Or something else? In this town? Hutchins' expression said it all. There are no accidents, Mr. Marston. Only consequences. Jack's mind raced. The timing was too convenient. Right when he was getting close. Right when Emma was gathering evidence. Either someone at the mine had talked, or Holcomb was tying up loose ends. I need my horse. Now. Where are you headed? To find out what Tom Holcomb doesn't want anyone to see. Hutchins had the gray mare saddled in minutes. As Jack swung into the saddle, the old stableman caught his stirrup. You're riding into a hornet's nest. Been there before, Jack said grimly. This time, I'm bringing smoke." He rode out of Redemption at a gallop, following the same eastern trail he'd taken into town. Behind him, he could hear Holcomb's men mounting up, their shouts carrying on the night wind. The hunt was on, and Jack Marston was done running. What secrets lie buried in those old mine shafts? And who else knows the truth about Jack Marston's return? The mine loomed against the night sky like the skeleton of some ancient beast. Jack pulled his mare to a stop on the ridge overlooking the operation, staying low in the saddle to avoid silhouetting himself against the stars. Below, lanterns bobbed like fireflies around the main shaft entrance, and he could hear men shouting orders, the creak of the hoist mechanism, the general chaos of an emergency in progress, or the carefully orchestrated appearance of one. He'd beaten Holcomb's men here by taking a shortcut through the arroyos, rough country that most riders avoided at night. But Jack had known these hills once, before the bullets in the grave. The knowledge had come back to him like muscle memory, guiding him through the darkness. Now he waited and watched, counting men and measuring odds. At least a dozen workers milled around the main shaft. Most looked genuinely panicked, miners who'd come running when the alarm was raised, men who still believed they worked for a legitimate operation. But off to one side, separate from the chaos, 3 figures stood in close conversation near a smaller shaft entrance that was nearly invisible in the shadows. Even at this distance, Jack recognized 2 of them, Cole Gannett and Silas Crane. The third was a broad-shouldered man in a foreman's vest, gesturing animatedly toward the smaller shaft. No sign of Holcomb yet. The sheriff would be coming, though. A man didn't abandon a high-stakes card game unless something threatened his empire. Jack dismounted and tied the mare to a stunted juniper, then began working his way down the hillside on foot. The terrain was treacherous, loose shale and hidden crevices that could break an ankle or worse. He moved slowly, testing each step, using scrub brush for cover. Halfway down, he heard hoofbeats approaching from the main road. He pressed himself flat against a boulder as a group of riders thundered past below, Holcomb and 4 of his deputies, riding hard for the mine. They reached the main shaft and dismounted in a cloud of dust. Holcomb immediately taking command, his voice cutting through the confusion. "Everyone away from the shaft! Now! This is sheriff's business." The miners hesitated, looking at each other uncertainly. One of them, a grizzled old-timer with a lamp in his hand, stepped forward. "Sheriff, there's men down there. We heard them calling for help, and my deputies will handle it," Holcomb snapped. "You boys head back to the bunkhouse. Anyone still here in 5 minutes spends the night in a cell for interfering with official business." That got them moving. Within minutes, the miners had dispersed, leaving only Holcomb's men and the foreman. Jack used the distraction to close the remaining distance, working his way around to where he could hear their conversation. "Telling you, we can't keep the old shaft sealed forever," the foreman was saying, his voice tight with stress. "Too many people know about it now. When McCready and his crew went in to shore up the supports, they saw the markers. They started asking questions. Where are they now?" That was Holcomb's voice, cold as winter stone. "Knocked out, tied up in the office. But they'll wake up soon. And when they do, they'll have had an unfortunate accident," Silas Crane interrupted smoothly. "Tragic collapse. Bad air. These things happen in mining operations, don't they, Mr. Patterson?" The foreman, Patterson, swallowed hard. "I didn't sign on for murder. You signed on when you took our money and looked the other way for the past 2 years," Holcomb said flatly. "You're in this as deep as we are. Now, where exactly did they see the markers?" "Eastern branch of the old shaft, about 200 feet in, where the vein played out and we stopped working it. Jack's blood ran cold, 200 feet into a sealed shaft, where bodies could lie undiscovered for years, where evidence of murder could be buried under tons of rock with a few strategically placed charges. He'd heard enough. Moving carefully, Jack worked his way toward the smaller shaft entrance where Cole and 2 other deputies stood guard. They were focused on the conversation near the main shaft, their backs to the darkness. A tactical mistake that would cost them. Jack drew his Colt and stepped out of the shadows. "Evening, boys." All 3 men spun, hands moving toward their weapons. Jack already had his gun leveled at Cole's chest. "Don't," he said quietly. "Draw, and you die. Simple as that." Cole's eyes widened as recognition finally clicked into place. Even in the dim starlight, Jack could see the color drain from the deputy's face. You're dead. I saw you. You saw what you wanted to see." Jack gestured with his gun. "Hands up, all of you. Nice and slow." The other 2 deputies complied immediately, but Cole just stared, his hand still hovering near his pistol. "This isn't possible. I put 2 bullets in you myself. You bled out on the saloon floor." "You got sloppy, Cole. Left me breathing just long enough for someone to find me. 3 years I spent putting myself back together, thinking about that night, thinking about you and Holcomb standing over me, laughing." Jack took a step closer, his voice dropping to something barely above a whisper. "Now I'm here to return the favor." "Jack!" The shout came from the main shaft. Jack glanced over and saw Holcomb striding toward them, his face twisted with fury and disbelief. Behind him came Patterson the foreman, Silas Crane, and the other deputies, all of them now aware of the ghost in their midst. The moment of distraction was all Cole needed. He drew with surprising speed, but Jack was faster, training and rage combining in perfect synchronization. His Colt barked once, the bullet taking Cole in the shoulder and spinning him backward. The deputy's gun clattered to the ground, unfired. Then all hell broke loose. The other 2 deputies went for their weapons. Jack shot the first one through the leg and dove for cover as the second opened fire, bullets whining off the rocks around him. He rolled behind a support beam near the shaft entrance, came up shooting, and saw the deputy drop with a cry of pain. Return fire erupted from the direction of the main shaft. Holcomb's men spreading out, finding cover, laying down a barrage that kept Jack pinned. Wood splintered above his head. Dirt kicked up at his feet. He was outnumbered and outgunned. Exactly the situation he'd hoped to avoid. Then the night exploded with gunfire from a different direction. Jack risked a glance and saw muzzle flashes from the hillside, someone providing covering fire, forcing Holcomb's men to split their attention. The shots were precise, deliberate, the work of someone who knew how to handle a rifle. Emma. It had to be Emma, or one of her allies. Using the distraction, Jack moved deeper into the shaft entrance, dragging Cole's wounded body with him as a shield. The deputy groaned and struggled weakly, but Jack's grip was iron. "You move! You die!" Jack hissed in his ear. "You stay quiet. You might live. Your choice." Holcomb's voice rang out across the compound. "Marston! Jack Marston! I know it's you! You're a dead man. You hear me? A dead man." "Already died once, Tom," Jack shouted back. "Didn't take the first time." More gunfire answered him, but it was wild now, panicked. The unknown shooter on the hillside was keeping them honest, preventing them from rushing the shaft. Jack pulled Cole deeper into the tunnel, feeling the temperature drop as they moved away from the entrance. Old timbers creaked overhead. The air smelled of dust and decay, and something else, something that made his skin crawl. Death. Old death. "The bodies," Jack said to Cole, who was bleeding and whimpering. "Where are they?" "Go to hell." Jack pressed his gun against Cole's wounded shoulder, making the deputy scream. "I've got nothing to lose, Cole. You murdered me once already. Now tell me where the bodies are, or I'll make sure you bleed out slow in this hole." "Eastern branch," Cole gasped. 200 feet, like Patterson said. "They're in a cave-in we staged. But you'll never make it out with the evidence. Holcomb will bring this whole mountain down before he lets you expose him. Then he'll bury himself too. You think he cares? You think any of us do?" Cole's laugh was wet and painful. "We're all damned anyway, Jack. Might as well take you with us." A shout from outside. Holcomb ordering his men to seal the shaft. Jack heard the rumble of machinery, the groan of timber being moved. They were going to trap him inside, bury the evidence, and him together. He needed to move. Now! Jack knocked Cole unconscious with the butt of his gun and left him slumped against the tunnel wall. Then he struck a match, found an old lamp hanging from a support beam, and lit it. The flame guttered but held, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The tunnel branched ahead, north and east, both passages disappearing into darkness. Jack took the eastern branch, moving as quickly as he dared. The floor was uneven, littered with debris and abandoned equipment. Water dripped from overhead, pooling in depressions. His footsteps echoed in the confined space. 50 feet in, he found the first marker, a notched timber that someone had carved with initials. JT below it, scratched into the wood. August 1873. A name, a date, a life reduced to marks on a beam. Jack's jaw tightened as he pushed forward. More markers appeared as he went deeper. DK, RS, MW. Each with a date, each from 3 or 4 years ago. Men who'd come to work the mine and never left. Men whose families probably still wondered what happened to them. The tunnel narrowed, forcing Jack to duck beneath low-hanging supports. He could hear sounds from behind him now, men entering the shaft, their voices echoing in the confined space. They were coming for him, but carefully, aware that he was armed and dangerous. 200 feet in, the tunnel opened into a wider chamber. Jack raised his lamp and felt his stomach drop. The cave-in that Cole had mentioned wasn't natural. Someone had deliberately collapsed this section, bringing down tons of rock and earth to seal off whatever lay beyond. But time and settling had created gaps in the debris, and through those gaps, Jack could see bones. Human bones. He moved closer, the lamplight revealing the horrific truth. This wasn't just a burial site. It was a mass grave. Skeletal remains were visible in the gaps between rocks, some still wearing the tattered remnants of work clothes. A boot here, a belt buckle there, the rusted head of a pickaxe. Jack counted at least 7 skulls. Probably more buried deeper in the collapse. This was what Holcomb had killed to protect. This was the secret worth murdering Jack for 3 years ago, before he'd even gotten close to the truth. "Jesus!" he whispered. Footsteps behind him. Jack spun, raising his gun, but it was Emma who emerged from the darkness, a rifle in her hands and determination in her eyes. "I followed when I saw Holcomb's men ride out," she said quickly. "Figured you'd need backup. The others are keeping them busy outside, but we don't have much time. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. But here we are." She moved to the cave-in, her face going pale in the lamplight as she saw what Jack had found. Oh God, Daniel was right. They're all here. We need to document this. Get evidence we can take to the territorial marshal. An explosion shook the tunnel, showering them with dust and debris. Then another, closer. Holcomb was collapsing the shaft, sealing them in. "Move!" Jack grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her back the way she'd come. The tunnel groaned around them, timbers splitting with sounds like rifle shots. Rocks tumbled from the ceiling. The lamp's flame flickered wildly. They ran through the darkness, Emma's rifle clattering against the walls, Jack's boots slipping on the uneven floor. Behind them, the eastern branch was collapsing, the carefully staged cave-in spreading as Holcomb's charges destroyed the supports. Another explosion, this one ahead of them. They were trapped between advancing collapses, the tunnel becoming a tomb. Jack pulled Emma into a side alcove just as a section of ceiling crashed down where they'd been standing. Dust choked the air. The lamp went out, plunging them into absolute darkness. For a moment, there was only the sound of falling rock and their own labored breathing. Then gradually, the collapse subsided. The rumbling faded to occasional trickles of dirt and stone. "Emma," Jack's voice was hoarse. "You hurt?" "No." "You?" Still breathing. He fumbled in his pocket for matches, struck one. In the brief flare of light, he saw that the alcove they'd sheltered in was actually the mouth of another tunnel, one he hadn't noticed before. Older, narrower, possibly abandoned even before the main shaft was worked out. "There might be another way out," he said, lighting the lamp again with shaking hands. These old mines sometimes connect to the surface through ventilation shafts. Or they dead-end 100 feet in, and we suffocate. But Emma was already moving into the new tunnel, driven by the same desperate hope that was keeping Jack going. They moved through passages that grew progressively smaller and more unstable. The air was thick and stale. Jack's side was screaming from the exertion, the old wound protesting every step. But stopping meant dying, so he kept moving. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, they saw it, a faint glimmer of starlight filtering down from above, a vertical shaft no more than 3 feet wide, climbing toward the surface. There were handholds carved into the rock, ancient and weathered, but still usable. "You first," Jack said. "I'll cover from below in case they're waiting at the top." Emma didn't argue. She slung her rifle over her shoulder and started climbing. Jack watched her ascend, then began his own climb, the lamp hanging from his belt, his Colt ready in one hand. The climb was brutal. His damaged muscles screamed in protest. Twice, his boot slipped on crumbling handholds. But he kept going, driven by rage and determination, and the knowledge that Holcomb wanted him dead, which meant he was getting too close to the truth. Emma reached the top first, pulling herself out onto the desert floor. Jack followed moments later, emerging into the blessed coolness of the night air. They were on the far side of the mountain from the main mine entrance, hidden from view by outcroppings of rock. In the distance, they could see the glow of lanterns at the mine compound. Holcomb's men were still there, probably thinking Jack and Emma were buried under tons of rock. Let them think it. Let them believe they'd won. "We need to get to the territorial marshal," Emma said, brushing dirt from her clothes. "Show him where the bodies are before Holcomb can cover them up completely. He'll deny everything, say the tunnel collapsed naturally, that we're making wild accusations." Jack stared at the distant lights, his mind racing. "We need more than bodies. We need proof that Holcomb ordered their deaths. We need witnesses. Patterson," Emma said suddenly, "the foreman, he knows everything. He admitted it tonight. If we can get him away from Holcomb, convince him to testify. He's scared. He'll run or lie to save himself. Then we make him more scared of keeping quiet than of talking." Emma's eyes glinted in the starlight. "There's one thing men like Patterson fear more than the law, Jack. They fear losing everything they've built. Their reputation, their position, their future. If we can show him that staying loyal to Holcomb means going down with him, he'll turn." She was right, and Jack was starting to understand why Emma had survived 3 years of quietly fighting Holcomb while others had died. She thought like a strategist, not just a victim seeking revenge. How do we get to Patterson? Leave that to me. I know where he lives, and I know his weakness. Emma smiled grimly. His daughter. She's engaged to a minor, one of the good ones. If Patterson thinks his silence might cost him his family. Jack nodded slowly. It was manipulation, borderline coercion, but they were past the point of clean hands. Do it, but be careful. Holcomb will be watching everyone now. And what will you be doing? Paying a visit to someone who owes me answers. Jack checked his Colt, reloading the spent rounds. Sheriff Tom Holcomb and I have unfinished business. 3 years' worth. Don't go after him alone, Jack. Not yet. We're close to breaking this open. But if you die now, I won't. He met her eyes. I've already died once for this town. Once is enough. They separated in the darkness, Emma heading back toward redemption on foot, while Jack circled around to where he'd left his mare. The horse was still there, nervous but unharmed. Jack mounted up and sat for a moment, looking back at the mine. Somewhere under all that rock and earth lay the evidence of Holcomb's crimes. The bodies of 15 men, maybe more, who trusted in the law to protect them and found only death. But bodies weren't enough. Holcomb had proven tonight that he'd destroy any evidence, murder any witness, collapse entire mountains to keep his secrets buried. No, what Jack needed was something Holcomb couldn't destroy, couldn't bury, couldn't shoot. He needed the truth, and he needed it to spread like wildfire through redemption before Holcomb could extinguish it. As Jack rode through the desert night, a plan began to form in his mind. It was dangerous, probably suicidal, but it was also the only way to force Holcomb out of the shadows and into the light where everyone could see him for what he was. A murderer, a thief, a monster wearing a badge. The question was whether Jack could survive long enough to make it work. Above him, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the struggles of men below. But somewhere in those stars, Jack thought, maybe there was justice after all. He just had to live long enough to claim it. With the mine collapsed and evidence buried, how can Jack expose Holcomb's crimes? And what price will the truth demand? Dawn broke over redemption like a judgment. Jack Marston sat in the church bell tower, rifle across his knees, watching the town wake beneath him. From this height, he could see everything. The sheriff's office, where Tom Holcomb was no doubt planning his next move. The Silver Dollar, where news of last night's events would already be spreading. The houses and shops where ordinary people lived their lives, unaware that their town was built on a foundation of bones and lies. Reverend Morrison had given him the key to the tower without question, had even brought him coffee and bread before disappearing to make his own preparations. The old preacher understood what was about to happen, understood that sometimes redemption required fire. Jack sipped the lukewarm coffee and waited. The town was stirring now, miners heading to their shifts, storekeepers opening their establishments, children running through the streets. Normal life, oblivious to the storm gathering overhead. Then he saw them, Holcomb's men, 6 of them, spreading out through town in a pattern that spoke of military precision. They were searching, questioning, showing something to people on the street. Probably a description of Jack, maybe even an old photograph if Holcomb had kept one. The hunt was on, but this time the prey had teeth. Jack descended from the tower and found Morrison in the church proper, arranging benches. The Reverend looked up, his weathered face grave. "Word's all over town about last night," Morrison said quietly. "They're saying there was a cave-in at the mine. 3 men killed, McCready and his crew. Tragic accident, according to Sheriff Holcomb. He's scheduled a prayer service for this afternoon. Ask me to preside. Will you? Oh, I'll preside. Morrison's eyes glinted hard. But I don't think the sheriff will appreciate the sermon I have planned. Sometimes the Lord's work requires speaking uncomfortable truths. A commotion outside cut off Jack's reply. Through the church window, he saw a crowd gathering in the street. 50 people, maybe more, all focused on something at the center of their circle. Emma Holloway stood on the back of a wagon, holding up a ledger, her evidence book, for everyone to see. "What the hell is she doing?" Jack muttered, already moving toward the door. This wasn't the plan. They were supposed to work quietly, get Patterson to turn, build an airtight case before confronting Holcomb publicly. But Emma had different ideas. Her voice rang out across the crowd, clear and strong. 3 years ago, Jack Marston was murdered in the Silver Dollar Saloon. Sheriff Holcomb told us he died a criminal, killed in a fair fight. But that was a lie. Jack Marston was murdered because he was asking questions. Questions about missing minors, about illegal land seizures, about corruption that reaches all the way to the top of our law enforcement. The crowd murmured, some people nodding, others looking uncertain. Jack spotted Holcomb's deputies pushing through the throng, trying to reach Emma. "And last night," Emma continued, her voice rising, "Sheriff Holcomb tried to bury the truth. Literally. He collapsed the old mine shaft to hide evidence of murder. 15 men, maybe more. I killed and buried in those tunnels. Men with families, men with lives, men whose only crime was seeing too much." "That's a lie!" The shout came from Cole Gannett, his arm in a sling from Jack's bullet, but his gun hand still free. He stood at the edge of the crowd, his face twisted with rage. "You're spreading sedition and lies, Miss Holloway. My advice is you step down from that wagon before you say something you'll regret." "The only thing I regret," Emma shot back, "is not speaking up sooner, not standing with Daniel when he tried to expose you and your corrupt sheriff. But I'm standing now, Deputy Gannett, and I'm not alone." On cue, Hutchins emerged from the livery stable, followed by 3 other townsmen Jack didn't recognize. Then Morrison stepped out of the church, his presence lending moral weight to Emma's accusations. More people joined them, shopkeepers, miners, ranchers, who'd been pushed around by Holcomb's schemes for too long. The crowd was growing, and with it, the balance of power was shifting. Jack stayed in the church doorway, watching, his hand on his Colt. This was Emma's play, her moment, but he was ready to back it when the shooting started, because it would start. Men like Holcomb didn't surrender power peacefully. The sheriff himself emerged from his office then, flanked by Silas Crane and 4 other deputies. Holcomb's face was a mask of controlled fury as he surveyed the scene. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of assumed authority. "Emma Holloway, you are under arrest for slander, incitement to riot, and interfering with official business. Step down from that wagon immediately. On what charges that will hold up in territorial court?" Emma challenged. "Or are you planning another convenient accident, Sheriff? Like the one that killed Daniel Cartwright? Like the 15 miners buried in your secret graveyard? You have no proof of these wild accusations? I have ledgers showing illegal property transfers. I have testimony from miners who saw the bodies in the old shaft before you collapsed it. I have witnesses to your threats and bribes." Emma held up the evidence book. "And I have the truth, Sheriff, which is more than you've ever had." Holcomb's hand moved toward his gun, a subtle shift that Jack recognized immediately. The sheriff was calculating odds, measuring whether he could silence Emma and disperse the crowd through intimidation and force. He must have liked his chances because his hand closed on his pistol grip. Jack stepped out of the church, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Tom." Every head turned. The crowd parted, creating a corridor between Jack and the sheriff. In the sudden silence, Jack could hear his own heartbeat, steady and calm, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Holcomb's face went white, then red, cycling through disbelief and rage. "You're dead! I watched them bury you!" "You buried an empty coffin." Jack walked slowly forward, each step deliberate, measured. "Takes more than bullets and lies to keep a man down, Tom, especially when he's got a reason to crawl back." Silas Crane moved away from Holcomb, giving himself room to draw. The professional killer's eyes were cold, calculating, and assessing Jack with the detached interest of a predator sizing up prey. "You made a mistake 3 years ago," Jack continued, still walking, still closing the distance. "You didn't make sure I was dead. Left me breathing just long enough for someone to find me, patch me up, give me time to think about what you'd done. 3 years, Tom. 3 years to heal, 3 years to plan, 3 years to get ready for this moment." Cole Gannett was moving to flank him, Jack noted peripherally. 2 other deputies were spreading out, trying to create a crossfire. Standard tactics for men who'd killed before and expected to do it again. But the crowd had other ideas. Hutchins and his allies formed a line between the deputies and Jack. Not aggressive, but unmistakably protective. More townspeople joined them. Men with weathered hands and hard eyes. Women who'd lost husbands or sons to Holcomb's greed. Even a few miners still in their work clothes. The balance had shifted. Holcomb's men were outnumbered 20-1. "Stand down," Holcomb ordered his deputies, seeing the math as clearly as Jack did. Then to Jack, "You want justice? Fine. We'll settle this legal. Territorial marshal can sort out who's telling the truth." "The marshal who's on your payroll?" Emma called from her wagon. "The one who's been ignoring complaints about you for 3 years? No, Sheriff. Justice isn't coming from Silver Creek. It's coming from right here, right now." "Then what do you want?" Holcomb's voice was tight, controlled, but Jack could hear the edge of desperation underneath. "A trial? You'll get one. I've got nothing to hide. You've got 15 bodies to hide," Jack said flatly. "And a list of crimes long enough to hang you twice. But trials take time, and time gives you chances to disappear, to buy off witnesses, to destroy what evidence is left." He stopped 20 feet from Holcomb, close enough to see the sweat on the sheriff's face, despite the morning cool. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to write out a confession, every crime, every murder, every corrupt deal. You're going to sign it in front of these witnesses. And then you're going to ride out of redemption and never come back." Holcomb laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "And if I refuse, then we do this the hard way." Jack's hand hovered near his Colt. "Your choice, Tom. Die with a pen in your hand or a gun. Either way, your time as sheriff is done." For a long moment, nobody moved. The entire town seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Holcomb's decision. Jack could see the calculations running behind the sheriff's eyes, weighing options, measuring chances, looking for an angle. Then Silas Crane spoke, his voice smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "Seems to me you're forgetting something, Mr. Marston. Sheriff Holcomb isn't alone. He's got men loyal to him, men who won't appreciate you making threats. Men like you." Jack didn't take his eyes off Holcomb. "You're a hired gun, Crane. Your loyalty goes as far as the money. And Holcomb's money is about to dry up, along with his protection from territorial law. Ask yourself, is dying for a corrupt sheriff really worth your fee?" Crane's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his stance. He was a professional, and professionals knew when a contract was turning sour. "Double my rate," he said to Holcomb. "Right now, or I walk." "I don't have," Holcomb started, then bit off the words. But the damage was done. Everyone had heard it. The all-powerful sheriff couldn't even pay his own hired killer. Crane shrugged, stepped back, and leaned against the sheriff's office wall with his arms crossed. Out of the fight, at least for now. That left Holcomb, Cole Gannett, and 4 other deputies against Jack, Emma, and an angry town. The math was getting worse for the law by the second. "Last chance," Jack said quietly. "The pen or the gun?" Holcomb's hand twitched toward his pistol. Morrison's voice rang out from the church steps, cutting through the tension like a church bell. "Tom Holcomb, you stand before God in these witnesses with blood on your hands and lies on your lips. I'm giving you a chance to confess your sins and save your soul. Don't compound your damnation by adding more death to your ledger." The Reverend's words seemed to penetrate where Jack's threats had not. Holcomb's hand moved away from his gun, his shoulders sagging slightly. He looked older suddenly, smaller, a man seeing the walls closing in with no way out. "I want amnesty," he said finally. "Full pardon in exchange for testimony against the mining company executives who ordered me to no deals." Jack's voice was iron. "You give us the truth, all of it, or you die right here. Those are your only options." Cole Gannett couldn't stay silent any longer. "You think you can just waltz back into town and take over Marston? You think these people will follow a dead man over their lawful sheriff?" "I think," Jack said carefully, "that these people are tired of a sheriff who murders for money. I think they're ready for the truth, even if it hurts. And I think you'd better step back before you join your boss in whatever hell he's heading toward." Cole's face flushed with rage. His wounded shoulder didn't stop him from reaching for his gun. Jack drew faster than thought, muscle memory and 3 years of practice combining in perfect execution. His Colt cleared leather, leveled, fired, all in the space between heartbeats. The bullet took Cole in the chest, dead center, dropping him where he stood. The crowd gasped. Several women screamed. Holcomb reached for his own gun, but Jack was already moving, closing the distance in 3 quick strides, his Colt now pressed against Holcomb's forehead. "Don't," Jack whispered. "Shh, don't give me another reason." The other deputies froze, uncertain. Their leader was staring down the barrel of Jack's gun, and the man holding that gun had just proven he could shoot faster than they could blink. Emma's voice rose above the shocked silence. "It's over, Sheriff. Your deputy drew first. Everyone saw it. Self-defense, clear as day. Now you can either confess and live or resist and join him. Your choice." Holcomb's eyes darted from face to face in the crowd, looking for support, finding none. Even his own deputies were backing away, hands raised, distancing themselves from their boss. "Paper," Holcomb said hoarsely. "I'll need paper and a pen." Morrison produced both from inside his coat, having clearly anticipated this moment. He set up a makeshift desk on a barrel near the church, and Holcomb, with Jack's gun still trained on him, began to write. It took an hour. The crowd remained, growing larger as word spread through town. Holcomb wrote page after page, detailing crimes that made some of the witnesses weep and others curse. Land fraud, bribery, intimidation, murder. 15 names of miners killed in the shaft, with dates and methods. Daniel Cartwright's murder and how they'd staged it to look like a robbery. The arrangement with the mining company to eliminate anyone who questioned their operations. Payoffs to the territorial marshal. All of it, in Holcomb's own hand, witnessed by Reverend Morrison, and signed at the bottom of each page. When it was finished, Holcomb dropped the pen and looked at Jack with something like relief. "There, it's done. Everything you wanted." "Not quite," Jack gestured to the deputies. "Your men. They need to decide if they're lawmen or criminals. Right here, right now. One by one, the deputies removed their badges and dropped them on the ground. Only one man hesitated, a young deputy Jack didn't recognize, who couldn't have been more than 22. "I didn't know," the kid said, his voice shaking. "About the murders. I swear I didn't know. I just wanted to be a lawman, help people." "Then help them now," Jack said, not unkindly. "Ride to Silver Creek. Bring back the territorial marshal. The real one, not the one on Holcomb's payroll. Bring federal marshals if you can find them. Bring witnesses and investigators. Let them see what we found here." The young deputy nodded, grabbed a horse, and rode out at a gallop. Jack turned to Holcomb. "You've got 2 minutes to get on a horse and ride out of Redemption. Don't come back. Don't write. Don't send messages. You're a ghost now, Tom, same as you tried to make me. Where am I supposed to go? Same place all the damn go. I don't much care." Jack's voice went cold. "But if I ever see you again, I won't be offering confession as an option. I'll just finish what I started 3 years ago." Holcomb mounted his horse with shaking hands. He looked down at the town he'd terrorized for years, at the people who'd finally found the courage to stand against him. Then, without another word, he rode west toward the setting sun, getting smaller and smaller until he disappeared entirely. The crowd erupted in cheers and tears. People embraced each other, laughing and crying at the same time. Emma climbed down from her wagon and walked to Jack, her eyes bright with emotion. "We did it," she said simply. "You did it," Jack corrected. "Standing up in front of everyone, risking everything. That took more courage than any gunfight. You came back from the dead. I think that trumps a speech." Emma smiled, then grew serious. "What happens now? With Holcomb gone, with Cole dead, with the confession. Will it be enough? It'll have to be." Jack looked at the confession papers Morrison was carefully folding. "We've got the truth in writing. We've got witnesses. We've got the mine shaft with bodies in it. The territorial courts can't ignore this, even if they wanted to. And you?" Emma asked softly. "What will you do?" Jack hadn't thought that far ahead. For 3 years, his entire existence had been focused on one goal, returning to Redemption and making Holcomb pay. Now that it was done, he felt strangely hollow. "Don't know," he admitted. "Thought I'd be dead by now, honestly. Didn't plan much past the gunfight." Morrison joined them, the confession tucked safely inside his coat. "The town will need a sheriff, someone people can trust. Someone who understands justice isn't about power, it's about protection." Jack shook his head. "Not me, Reverend. I'm a gunfighter, not a lawman." "You were a gunfighter," Morrison corrected. "But standing here today, putting your life on the line to expose corruption and murder, that's what lawmen are supposed to do. And this town needs someone who remembers that." Before Jack could argue, Hutchins approached with several other townspeople. The old stableman carried a battered silver star, not one of Holcomb's tainted badges, but an older one, worn and honest-looking. "This belonged to Sheriff McCarty," Hutchins said. "The last good sheriff this town had. He died before he could pass it to someone worthy. But I think he'd approve of you wearing it now, if you're willing." Jack stared at the badge, feeling the weight of what they were asking. To stay in Redemption. To rebuild what Holcomb had broken. To be something other than a ghost seeking revenge. To have a future instead of just a past. He looked at Emma, who was watching him with hope in her eyes. At Morrison, who'd risked everything to help him. At Hutchins and the others, who'd stood between him and Holcomb's guns. These people had given him back his life. Maybe it was time to give them something in return. "I'll wear it," Jack said quietly. "But only if things change. No more corruption. No more looking the other way, while the powerful prey on the weak. We do this right, or we don't do it at all. Agreed, Morrison said, and the others echoed him. Hutchins pinned the badge to Jack's vest, and the crowd erupted in applause. Jack felt the weight of it. Not just the medal, but the responsibility, the trust, the faith these people were placing in him. He'd come to redemption expecting to die in a blaze of gunfire and vengeance. Instead, he'd found something he'd thought was lost forever, a reason to live. The sun climbed higher as the celebration continued. People brought out food and drink. Someone produced a fiddle and started playing. What had begun as a confrontation was turning into something like a festival. Redemption, celebrating its freedom from fear. Jack stood apart from the festivities for a moment, looking at the mountains where the mine lay hidden. 15 men were still buried up there, their bodies waiting to be recovered, their families waiting for closure. That would be his first priority as sheriff, bringing them home, giving them proper burials, making sure their deaths weren't forgotten. Thinking about them, Emma had come to stand beside him. Thinking about all of it, how close we came to losing, how many people suffered while Holcomb wore that badge. Jack touched the star on his chest. How do you make up for that? How do you rebuild trust after it's been shattered? One day at a time. One honest decision after another. One promise kept after another. Emma's hand found his. You don't have to do it alone, Jack. That's what you learned today, isn't it? That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is accept help from people who believe in you. She was right. 3 years ago, Jack had been alone, a gunfighter with no connections, no allies, no one to watch his back. It had made him vulnerable, made it easy for Holcomb to nearly kill him. But now he had Emma, Morrison, Hutchins, and a whole town full of people who'd proven they could stand up to tyranny when it mattered. He wasn't alone anymore, and neither was redemption. As the sun began its descent toward evening, casting long shadows across the town, Jack Marston stood with Emma's hand in his and watched his future unfold. It wasn't the future he'd expected. The blaze of glory, the final gunfight, the poetic death of a man who had nothing left to live for. Instead, it was something better. Harder, certainly. More complicated, but better. It was the future of a town healing from its wounds, of justice finally served, of people learning to trust their law again. And at the center of it all stood a man who'd been dead and buried, who'd clawed his way back from the grave, not just for revenge, but for something greater, for redemption. The gunslinger, who shouldn't have survived, had done more than survive. He'd found a reason to keep living. And in a dusty frontier town called Redemption, that was miracle enough. Epilogue. 6 months later, the Territorial Marshal's report on Redemption made headlines across 3 territories. 15 bodies recovered from the mine, multiple arrests of mining company executives. Holcomb found and brought to trial. He hanged on a cold November morning, unrepentant to the end. Silas Crane disappeared. His contract terminated along with Holcomb's regime. Some said he headed to Mexico. Others claimed he'd taken up work in California. Jack didn't much care, as long as the killer stayed gone. The young deputy who'd ridden for help became Jack's deputy in truth, eager to learn real law from a real lawman. Patterson, the foreman, turned as state's witness and helped recover evidence from what remained of the mine. His daughter's wedding to the miner she loved went forward, and Patterson walked her down the aisle with his head held high, a man who'd made terrible mistakes, but was trying to atone. Emma took over the land office, helping families reclaim property stolen through Holcomb's schemes. On quiet evenings, she and Jack would sit on her porch and talk about the future, about building something lasting, something good. The old timbers of redemption still creaked in the wind. The desert sun still beat down mercilessly. The saloon still rang with piano music and rough laughter. But something fundamental had changed. The town had remembered what it meant to stand for justice, had learned that courage wasn't about guns and badges. It was about speaking truth when silence was safer, about standing up when falling down would be easier. And on Jack Marston's chest, Sheriff McCarty's old badge gleamed in the sunlight. A promise kept, a duty honored, a life reclaimed from the darkness. The gunslinger who shouldn't have survived had become the lawman who couldn't be bought. In redemption, that was exactly what they needed. The end.